From north to south, east to west, Eddie Stobart's trucks traverse the UK.
There was a time when the name Eddie Stobart didn't just mean lorries, it meant loyalty, discipline, precision. It meant watching the green and red rig thunder past on the M6 and giving a nod of respect. For truckers, it was the badge of honor. For the public, it was a national icon. School kids would write down trailer names in notebooks, pensioners would collect the merchandise. It was a haulage firm that felt more like a football club. But it didn't start out as a spectacle. Eddie himself began with just a few wagons in the late 1940s, hauling agricultural goods in the north. It was a family affair, nothing fancy, just hard graft and reliability. It wasn't until his son, Edward Stobart, took the reins in the 70s that the real transformation began. Edward turned trucks into theatre. He insisted every cab be spotless. Drivers had to wear uniforms, no swearing, no radios blaring, and not a speck of dirt on the wheels. Every truck had a girl's name. Every driver followed the rules to the letter. In an industry known for chaos and cigarettes, Eddie Stobart became the clean-cut poster child of professionalism. And it worked. The branding became legendary. People didn't just hire Stobart for logistics. They hired the name, the style, the confidence that when you saw a Stobart truck roll in, the job would be done right. By the 1990s, the company had hundreds of vehicles, a fan club with over 25,000 members, and a cult following that most haulage firms could only dream of. It was a strange kind of fame. The Stobart fleet made headlines. There were documentaries, a Channel 5 reality series, model toys, branded keyrings. People waved at the drivers on the roads like they were rock stars. And behind it all, Edward was running the tightest ship in haulage. Some say he was obsessive, others say he was a genius. Either way, the company grew and grew fast. But no empire runs on image alone. Behind the polished paint and pristine yards, the real costs of maintaining the brand were mounting. Edward had pushed the company into expansion, rail freight, container ports, warehousing, and that meant debt, big debt. And while the public saw the shiny side of the company, the finances were starting to buckle under pressure. In 2003, the cracks widened. Edward Stobart stepped down. Rumors swirled, health issues, burnout, business pressure, but whatever the reason, it was clear the man who had built the empire was no longer in control. And that's when the shift began. Enter Andrew Tinkler, a sharp businessman, aggressive, calculated. He wasn't interested in nostalgia or paint jobs. He saw Eddie Stobart as a brand to be monetized. The lorries, they were just a part of a bigger puzzle. Tinkler teamed up with a firm called Westbury, and soon after, the entire company was restructured. The original haulage business spun off, the brand packaged up. What used to be a tight-knit family operation suddenly became part of a sprawling logistics empire filled with shareholders and spreadsheets. At first, it looked like a smart move. The business expanded again. Airport logistics, biomass fuel, European contracts. Investors were excited. The name Eddie Stobart still carried weight, but behind the scenes, something was lost. The obsession with Polish turned into an obsession with profit, and it showed. Drivers began to feel the squeeze. Shifts grew longer, pay stagnated, contracts were outsourced, agencies took over. The pride that came with wearing the Stobart badge began to fade. What was once a brotherhood of professional drivers became a rotating door of temp workers and short-term contracts. Truckers who had given decades to the firm were now chasing miles for pennies. And the fans noticed too. The clean image began to slip. Trucks weren't always spotless. The driver uniforms looked cheaper. Even the naming tradition started to disappear. It felt like the soul of Eddie Stobart had been sold off, piece by piece. But the real disaster was still ahead. In 2014, a financial bombshell hit the headlines. Eddie Stobart's parent company, by now renamed Stobart Group, was under scrutiny. The logistics business was spun off yet again, rebranded as a separate company and sold to a private equity firm called Green White Star. And just like that, Eddie Stobart became a tool for venture capital, a logo on a balance sheet, a cash cow to be milked, stripped, and flipped. What followed was chaos, management turnover, mounting losses, lawsuits. The name still meant something to the public, but inside the company, it was barely holding together. And for the men and women on the road, it had turned from a dream job into a thankless grind. And the worst part, most of them never saw it coming. The turning point came quietly, on paper, with little fanfare, but it shook the company's very foundation. In 2007, after decades of growth under the Stobart family, The business merged with Westbury Property Fund in a reverse takeover. That might sound dull, but this was the moment the company's soul began to slip through the cracks. Overnight, Eddie Stobart was no longer a family-run operation. It became a commodity, a brand on a spreadsheet. Investors saw trucks, depots, and fleet contracts. What they didn't see or care to understand was the culture, the people, the legacy. The company now belonged to shareholders, and with shareholders came targets, pressure to grow faster, to deliver more, to hit numbers that made the City of London happy. From the outside, the trucks kept rolling. The branding remained iconic, the lorries still named after women, and the company still claimed to be about logistics with personality. But inside the cab, life was changing, drastically. Drivers, once the heart and pride of the operation, started noticing the difference. Routes got longer, schedules tighter, breaks became rare luxuries. The emphasis shifted from trust and professionalism to efficiency metrics and bottom lines. Over time, rules got murky. Some drivers were moved onto zero-hour contracts. Others were expected to opt out of standard working time limits. The days of seasoned drivers with decades of service under their belts, respected and listened to, were fading fast. In their place came a revolving door of newer hires, many eager, but often undertrained and overworked. By the early 2010s, cracks became splits. In 2014, the logistics side of the company was sold off to a new private equity-backed venture called Eddie Stobart Logistics. Yes, the name remained, but ownership didn't. From then on, the Eddie Stobart name was passed around like a hot potato. Restructuring followed restructuring. Divisions were spun off, some operations were outsourced. What was once a vertically integrated company that owned everything, from the truck to the trailer to the depot, was now stitched together by contracts and partnerships. Veteran drivers saw the writing on the wall. Eddie Stobart Logistics had to suspend trading in its shares after accounting errors were discovered. The company admitted it had overstated its profits by millions. Panic spread quickly, investors bailed, workers worried about their jobs. It all came to a head when the company was bought out again, this time by DBAY Advisors, a private equity firm already known for its no-nonsense cost-cutting approach. Drivers were furious. Another change of ownership, another layer of middlemen, more uncertainty. The promises kept getting recycled. We're building a sustainable future, we value our drivers, we're investing in modern logistics. But on the ground, nothing changed. Pay packets were still slim, depots were understaffed, routes became more grueling, and the trust? Long gone. It wasn't just about the money or the hours anymore. It was the feeling that the company no longer understood or even cared about what it once stood for. Eddie Stobart wasn't supposed to be just another logistics brand. It was a symbol of British trucking pride, of long hauls done right, of drivers who waved to kids at crossings and knew every bump in the A1. Instead, by the late 2020s, the brand was fragmented. Some parts of the original business had been absorbed into larger corporate entities. Others had vanished. What remained was a shadow of the original outfit, stretched across Europe, still branded Stobart, still painting lorries with names, but hollowed out. The passion had been replaced by process. And the people who built the empire, many of them were watching from the outside now, wondering how it all unraveled so fast. There were whispers of union action. A few walkouts here and there, drivers posting their grievances online, sharing photos of grim break areas, torn uniforms, outdated pay slips. The shine was gone. And for those who'd once dreamed of donning the Stobart badge, it now felt more like a warning than a reward. And yet, the lorries still roll. The roads are still filled with green cabs and white trailers. But those in the know, they can tell. They can hear it in the silence of the CB radios, in the empty cafeterias at truck stops, in the quiet resignation of veteran hauliers who've seen it all before. Because Eddie Stobart wasn't just a company, it was a brotherhood, a way of life, a rolling institution built on respect, pride, and long miles done right. And somewhere along the way, the business forgot that.